What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my podcast. If I do sound a little bit crispier, a little bit deeper, a little better, it's because I picked up a new microphone. Not sponsored or anything like that, but just want to let you guys know and let you guys know that from now on, sound quality is going to be vastly superior. And I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. We talk about everything that has to do with the NFL, and we do it unjudgedly. We talk about every team. We talk about every breaking news, and we don't have favorites. We speak facts over feelings, and that's what we do on this podcast. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and let's get started. Breaking news today: Antonio Brown going back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that is a huge, tremendous deal when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what they want to accomplish. Remember, they just won the Super Bowl. They won with Antonio Brown on their roster. He played a total of 8 games last season. That's pretty good. Started in 4 games, had 45 receptions, 483 yards total, 4 touchdowns. That is an absolute monster, especially when you factor in he hadn't played for a year. We all saw him self-destruct. And apparently, there's only one quarterback that he can only play with without self-destructing, and that's Tom Brady. What kind of relationship do they have? I don't think anybody understands it, right? I don't think we understand it. I don't think they understand it. I don't think the NFL world understands it, right? But we have to put it in perspective. Tampa Bay listened to Tom Brady, finally. They finally caved in, and Tom Brady, the best GM, built these relationships with these players to the point where they're getting recruited by other all-star former MVP quarterbacks, such as Lamar Jackson, in this case with Antonio Brown, and they still choose to be a basically a third roster spot for the wide receiver course, because he's third in the depth chart if you look at it. In the Tampa Bay organization, Antonio Brown is number 3. You have Mike Evans, for sure the number 1 receiver on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You have number 2, Chris Godwin. Now, that's a little bit iffy, right? Antonio Brown only playing 8 games, not having the chemistry, definitely was the third wide receiver on the roster last year. Could that change this year? Absolutely. I think Antonio Brown still has a lot to deliver. He may not have the 2015, 2016. When did he rush for 1,800 yards? 2015. 1,800 yards. He may not have the burst. I could be wrong. We only saw him for 8 games. And like I said, hadn't played for a year. So what are we going to see from Antonio Brown? If he comes back to being 85% of what he was, I think he overtakes Chris Godwin in the second overall wide receiver in the depth chart. I think he has that potential. Now, they still have Chris Godwin. They still have Scotty Miller. That is an absolute monster of a team. And if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, if I'm Russell Wilson, I am terrified. If I'm Matthew Stafford, I'm terrified. This is the big leagues, right? Matthew Stafford going to the Rams, big acquisition. I think they're definitely going to be in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a major contender in this upcoming Super Bowl. But you have to know that this is the big leagues, right? We saw Tom Brady finally click with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last season during the playoffs, and they went undefeated. I think that is a major, major move. And I think Antonio Brown is an absolute superior improvement to whoever was going to be number 3, possibly a Scotty Miller. Now, he used to be a number 3, but he was, relieved of his number 3 duties because of Antonio Brown. Now, he did a phenomenal job. They still have Tyler Johnson, I believe. So he's still, Scotty Miller is no joke. Definitely has the speed, has the ability, and he makes plays. But it's Antonio Brown, right? We all seen what he can do. Definitely with the Pittsburgh Steelers was an absolute monster. So we have to look at what it all entails. I think Antonio Brown, with the offseason that they're going to have, I hope they're all vaccinated. I know that the vaccination is a pretty big topic. I do not want to give my opinion on it. But if they can stay healthy this offseason, this upcoming season, I think that Tom Brady and the relationship that he has built with these free agents, with these players, is an absolute 1,000% why they signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like we said, Rob Gronkowski was retired. He was working for Fox, speaking on the football, the NFL world. Got a call from Tom Brady. Hey, I'm going down to Tampa. I'm down. He is the only quarterback that he wanted to play for. Now, we all saw the reports that this offseason, this offseason, he was contemplating going to play for the Buffalo Bills. If you guys didn't know, he is from the Buffalo area. Hometown, I get it, but decided, okay, they're going to offer me roughly around the same, a little bit more, but I'd rather play with Tom Brady and have a chance to win. Leonard Fournette, we have to clarify, he was a free agent. They did not trade for him. He was cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tom Brady gave him a call. The Buccaneers, and I have to give credit to the Buccaneers, Jason Light, for listening, for going out there. So there's so many teams. All right, we see this with Russell Wilson crying about, I tell them that I want this player, and then they don't get it. It makes sense. Aaron Rodgers has the same problem. There's these organizations that don't put the stock into what their quarterback wants, which I think is a little bit ridiculous, right? Obviously, I think there should be a limit to how much say they have. But if you have the due diligence to realize that those are a key asset, if you both agree, your quarterback and the franchise, why not go get the guy? Right? I don't agree with franchises that, okay, we realize that he made a good point that we should go get this player, but because we're not the one who saw him first, we're not going to go get him. That's ridiculous, right? But we have to give credit to Jason Light, the Buccaneers organization, for listening to Tom Brady, something that most organizations don't do. They don't listen to their quarterbacks. So pick them up, and then Antonio Brown. And like I said, I've already stated this, but it has to be restated. The Antonio Brown was getting recruited by Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, and countless others behind the scenes. Russell Wilson front row page, right? Front page news. Sorry. He was on video throwing to him in his little mini football field in his own backyard. Russell Wilson was. Videos and pictures of him with Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown, his cousin. Lamar Jackson recruiting Antonio Brown to come to the Baltimore Ravens. These, by the way, are very good teams. Seattle Seahawks, very good team, always a playoff contender. And the Baltimore Ravens, always a playoff contender. So when you look at these organizations, they were both very eagerly accepting of Antonio Brown. Russell Wilson campaigned. The Seahawks made a bid. The Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson campaigned. Baltimore Ravens listened, put in a bid, and Antonio Brown chose to play with Tom Brady. We've seen this unfold. He went to the New England Patriots, had a phenomenal one game that season, 2019, against the Miami Dolphins. 1 touchdown, 4 receptions, 56 yards. Was an absolute beast. The chemistry was absolutely there. Anybody can see it. And then he has the trouble self-destructing. I get it. Gets cut. Is a free agent, is banned for the first 8 games by the NFL of the 2020 season. Close to game week 7, I believe. That's when they started looking at him seriously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after Bruce Arians straight up said he was not going to bring in Antonio Brown. Eventually, he started listening to Tom Brady. Hey, look, I have this chemistry with this guy, and we all know who he is. We all know what he can be. And he's getting offers from Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, and countless others. I want this guy on my team. And Antonio Brown made the decision to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fortunately, it worked out for him because he won a Super Bowl, right? This is something that is an absolute must when it comes to, he's now forever. And that's something that people don't realize, right? When you look at the egos on a team, right? We saw the egos of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the very beginning. Now, I don't think most people noticed, but people were wanting to do what they always wanted to do. Bruce Arians wasn't going to budge. Wide receivers were complaining a little bit about their targets, but they were still, saying the right things on the cameras. But you can tell how everything wasn't buying into the Patriots, quote unquote, way, right? The Tom Brady way. So when it comes to these players, putting aside their ego and everything, it had to be known that it was going to take a little while. Once that took over, then we all saw the greatness of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think that is an absolute must whenever you have to look at a team where they want to do things a certain way, when in reality, it's about having an open mind and finding the perfect mesh of everything, right? Tom Brady was campaigning to get a little bit of motion. That is his pre-snap ritual. Helps him decipher the defense. It absolutely gives up if it's going to be man-to-man or zone. And if you're an NFL quarterback, that is something huge. So, and Bruce Arians was totally against that. He was, no risk it, no biscuit. So we saw the clashes. We saw the lack of, compromise, the lack of unity. And we saw it progress, especially, with the week, I think it was week 8 bye. Their bye week. They realized that we have a chance to win, right? So from here on out, Mike Evans is not going to be regarded as, I believe he was like a 3, 4, 5-time Pro Bowler. I don't know, multiple-time Pro Bowler, right? Chris Godwin is not going to be looked upon as a multiple-time Pro. Ndamukong Suh isn't going to be looked at as a Pro Bowler. A Pro Bowler, Ndamukong Suh. No, it's never going to happen again. He's never going to be announced to the world like that. From now on, the announcements to whoever you are, whether it's a small stage, party, club, whatever it is, the first thing that comes out of the people's mouth is Super Bowl champion Mike Evans, Super Bowl champion Antonio Brown, Super Bowl champion Leonard Fournette, multiple Super Bowl champion Rob Gronkowski, because obviously he won a lot of Super Bowls with the Patriots. But that's what I'm saying. These players that never won, Lavonte David, right? Multiple years on the Buccaneers, had never won, made it to Pro Bowlers, but had never finished the race. From now on, he is going to be regarded as Lavonte David, Super Bowl champion. And I think that's what working with or playing with or, being on the same team with Tom Brady it entitles you to. An actual opportunity to be a Super Bowl champion for the rest of your life, because that can never be taken away. Like I said, if Mike Evans goes to the Hall of Fame, Super Bowl champion Mike Evans. Super Bowl champion Chris Godwin. Super Bowl champion Antonio Brown. Super Bowl champion, whoever you want to say. Super Bowl champion Lavonte David. I think Lavonte David has a strong case to make it to the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he hadn't gotten the respect or the looks at when he was playing with Jameis or whoever was the quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Doesn't matter. But we saw what he can do on the biggest stages, right? He didn't shrink. He was a major acquisition when it comes to the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, he was an acquisition because he's been there for a while. He was drafted by the Buccaneers, has stayed with the Buccaneers. But we all saw him basically lock down Travis Kelce by himself. Now, this is huge. Travis Kelce, a absolute monster of a tight end. And we saw single-handedly Lavonte David lock him down respectively, right? Obviously, the game got out of hand. They started playing a little prevent defense. Travis Kelce goes out and gets a couple of yards, right? Couple of yards that he probably wouldn't have gotten if Lavonte David had the gas, the pedal to the gas and locked him down continuously. But we saw in the key frame of the game, when it was most important, Lavonte David locked down Travis Kelce. And that has to be, awarded. And what that comes down to is fighting your guts out when it comes to playing with a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. Now, I don't think there is another Super Bowl caliber quarterback like the Tom Brady. I just don't, right? Everybody says, oh, Aaron Rodgers. No, he's fallen short too many times, right? Russell Wilson, he's fallen short too many times. And I don't understand the infatuation with stats, right? And this is why we named this podcast Beyond the Stats. It's not about stats. If you're a quarterback, you're measured by wins, specifically Super Bowl wins. All the other stats, they can move to the side. It doesn't matter, right? Jameis Winston had pretty good stats. Dak Prescott had pretty good stats. Lamar Jackson has pretty good stats. All of those players are looked upon as not reaching their potential. Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl 10 years ago. Maybe 11 now. I don't know how you want to calculate days exactly. But when you look at what has transpired, he's failed. No matter what you want to look. And there's always going to be excuses. There's always going to be reasons. Right? And some are valid. Unfortunately, the Green Bay Packers organization has not invested as much as they possibly could in the team around Aaron Rodgers. That has to be said. But when it comes to a quarterback, it speaks volumes of what you do with the people you do have around you. We saw Tom Brady take Bill Belichick and the awful New England Patriots, one of the worst teams in the NFL, to the point where the very next year they are horrible. Cam Newton looks like he's never played football in his life, mainly because of the weapons around him. And Bill Belichick goes off in the offseason, spends the most money in the NFL. They started looking like the Jets, where they just dish out so much cash. Tom Brady, with the exact same team, except two key starters on defense. I believe it was just two. I could be wrong, but I'm talking about full-time key starters. He went 12-4. He had a better record than what he did have with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, his stats were okay. 4,000 yards. 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's pretty good. If you look at Cam, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had 8 passing touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That's what the most that a former MVP, Cam Newton, that was the most that he could possibly get from the New England Patriots. But when you're that guy, when you're the guy, the quarterback, you make it happen. It doesn't matter. The rest doesn't matter. It's about winning. Right? Like I said, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's a Dak Prescott year. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll definitely look this up. I believe his rookie season, or like the year before, I think the thing was 2018 when he went 8-8. Okay, I pulled it up. 2019, 8-8. Threw for 900 yards more than Tom Brady. And let me see. Tom Brady threw how many touchdowns? 24. Dak Prescott, 30. So that's 6 more touchdowns. Dak Prescott actually had 2 more interceptions. No, actually 3. 3 more interceptions than Tom Brady. And what did those stats get him? 8-8. Missed the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Actually, they didn't have CeeDee Lamb. They had Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. They still had a pretty good defense. The defense was phenomenal. That was the year that Leighton Vander Esch took off and Jalen Smith took off, and they were talking about them as the best duo tandem linebacker in the NFL. and they went 8-8, that falls onto Dak Prescott. And the facts are there. If you look at roster, right, side by side, New England Patriots last year or the Dallas Cowboys 2 years ago, Dak Prescott, surrounded by talent, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott, one of the best offensive line, even though they were a little bit deteriorating at that time, I will admit. But what was entirely eye-opening is the amount of production taken out of the team, right? Yes, Dak Prescott threw for a lot of yards, but he lost. I think that's actually the year they lost to the Patriots. You can't, as a quarterback, not be subjected to or forever entitled to or chained to your record. Your record is literally the most important, crucial stat when it comes to an NFL quarterback. And I look at all these teams. Obviously, if you're not the pillar of why you win, then it doesn't matter. And that's something that has to be, because every scenario can be infatuated. With stats, you can make any quarterback look good. If you omit certain information, never say it out loud, and you just look at the bright side, right? We see this with Jimmy Garoppolo. Win percentage is phenomenal, but he's not the reason why they win. The Cleveland Browns. Yes, he looks good. Yes, his winning percentage was good, Baker Mayfield, but he's not the reason they win. Dak Prescott, his first 2 years, yes, they won, but he was not the reason. Russell Wilson, when he went to the Super Bowl, was a game manager. He let his ego inflate and wants to throw the ball. I think he patented or trademarked let Russ cook. I don't know the exact details. But when you do take the reins, when you are handed the keys to the car and you immediately crash, that's on you, right? And that's what we have to see. Jimmy Garoppolo has never been fully given the keys to the car because unfortunately he can't stay healthy, right? When he is healthy, he wins. He's not the reason, but he still wins, and that has to be taken into account. But he's not healthy the rest of the seasons. And that's just not acceptable when you look at what transpires in the NFL. Like I said, availability is the number one key. We see these with other quarterbacks who are available and have been given the keys to the car, and immediately upon receiving the keys, crash. Now, they look good while crashing, but they crash and burn and fail. Russell Wilson, like I said, why does nobody talk about how horrible he plays in the playoffs? He has not won since 2014 when he lost to the Super Bowl to Tom Brady. Now, fast forward 6 years later, 7 years later, he's up there pouting next to Roger Goodell because he doesn't have enough help. Goes out, throws his offensive line under the bus. But it's time for him to do some self-evaluation. We have to hold people accountable. There's a reason why Tom Brady, 7 years after losing, after beating Russell Wilson, is still in the Super Bowl, age 43 years old. Because the facts are out there. And it comes back to want. Right? And Russell Wilson, the blueprint is out there. Make reads faster. Get the ball out quicker. Do not hold on to the ball. You don't get sacked. You move the ball fast. You have two studs wide receiver in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. What else do you need? But it's always easy to blame other people, right? Dak Prescott, he doesn't blame anybody, but everybody else is getting blamed instead of him. Everybody says, oh, the Cowboys won, right? The offseason because they re-signed Dak Prescott. Oh, if he gets healthy, it's done for. You have the same roster from 2 years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the year you took Taco Charlton in the first round. So your first round pick doesn't really matter. So basically, entirely the exact same roster. And what did you do with a healthy Dak Prescott? Go 8-8. Mike McCarthy's not the answer. I'm sorry. Dan Quinn is not the answer. Why do people get failed prospects and say, oh yeah, but they're going to work with me? They could potentially prove us wrong. But if they're not good at their forte, then how can you possibly reimagine? Mike McCarthy is looked upon as was looked upon as an offensive genius. He's not anymore. And if you take away the offensive genius out of Mike McCarthy, what do you have? A subpar to below average head coach. You look at Dan Quinn. His forte was defense. And yet every year he was with the Atlanta Falcons as the head coach, they had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. That speaks to something. Bill Belichick was a failure as a head coach before drafting Tom Brady and coaching the New England Patriots. But his defense was never horrible because that was his forte. What he needed was an offensive mind and a franchise quarterback. Tom Brady, a la Tom Brady. But it wasn't like Bill Belichick was in the worst defensive categories every year for his head coaching career. No. He was a defensive, and he still is a defensive mastermind. Arguably, and this is actually, I don't even want to argue, the best defensive coordinator of all time. Best defensive mind of all time. But when you hired him, he didn't fail at defense for many years. Dan Quinn has failed at defense for many years. And now you hire him to say, okay, he is a defensive-minded coach who sucks at defense, but is going to bring your team back. It doesn't work like that. Mike McCarthy lying on the interview and then admitting to lying about the interview, that's ridiculous. I wouldn't have signed him. But what it comes down to, once again, is want, right? The want to be obsessed. The want to be great. Anybody can want it. The blueprint is out there. Tom Brady documented his life. Tom versus Time. I think that was the documentary on Facebook that aired a few years ago. He literally, during the NFL season, gave his kids 1 hour of his day. 1 hour. As a kid, I would hate it. Like, I think we've already established this and talked about this earlier in another episode. But that's the blueprint. Being obsessed. Watching film. Loving to watch film. Loving to understand concepts. Loving to read defenses. Loving to understand what the defense is going to do pre-snap to the point where the ball is snapped and you're ready to gun it out in less than 2 seconds. Not draw up plays in the mud like a Russell Wilson, hold the ball for 15 seconds. It looks good, but it doesn't accomplish anything. We saw this with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Yes, the offensive tackles were both injured, but you have to look at the tape. He was not taking what the defense for the Baltimore Ravens, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were giving him. That's fact. It's not feelings. If you're a Patrick Mahomes fanboy or a fangirl, it's not feelings. It's facts. he was a major contributor to his own failure in that Super Bowl. They're facts. Look at the film. Yes, we all saw him not have any time, but he never audibled out of a 5-man protection. He was going 4 receivers wide every single play. That is on him. He's not a rookie quarterback anymore. He's been in the league 3 years. He's already won a Super Bowl. Barely won a Super Bowl. That's because it was going against Jimmy Garoppolo. But you have to be able to read defenses. We saw the running back make an impact the few times they gave him the ball. That's something that has to be noted. That was Patrick Mahomes. He would hear the pass play and would absolutely want to throw. Of course, if you're a throwing quarterback, if you have the arm strength and the arm talent of a Patrick Mahomes, who wouldn't want to throw the football, right? But that's the point. It's knowing when to want to throw the football. If Tom Brady was on the Kansas City Chiefs that game, and his both tackles were out, and he was, Patrick Mahomes on the Buccaneers, he would have made it respectable because he would understand what the defense is giving you. Yes, throwing a football is much more exciting and much more pleasing than handing the ball off. But if you hand the ball off and your running back gets 15 yards and then 9 yards and then 5 yards and then 8 yards, and realize that you have to run the football. We saw them. They were playing two high safeties the entire game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers never changed anything on their defense. And that's Patrick Mahomes' fault. Obviously, it's Andy Reid's fault as well. And the offensive coordinator's fault. But it falls on all 3 of them. We blamed Matt Ryan for not running the ball in 2016 and taking the field goal, right? But yet we can't blame Patrick Mahomes, if you're a Chiefs fan, for letting you down and failing you. Run the football, take what the defense is giving you. And that's all that it is, right? We all applaud the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and we should, right? They did a phenomenal number on the Patrick Mahomes-led offense. But if you're planning to stop the pass, right, your whole defense is, we're not going to let them throw the ball deep. And yet they continue to try to throw the ball deep. You would have to seriously consider, hey, this is too easy. And I'm sure, and we saw, right? We saw the Super Bowl, the post Super Bowl interviews with everybody once the Super Bowl was over, once the parade was over. I think Devin White went on Skip and Shannon, and he was all like, okay, yeah, well, we it was too easy because they were just literally falling into our lap every time, right? We were playing to not let them beat us deep, and yet they kept on trying to beat us deep. When we were, for no hiding, no surprising, no disguising, we were not going to let them throw the ball deep, and yet they still continued to try, even though when they ran the ball, that guy got loose. The running back for the Kansas City Chiefs got loose. And yet Patrick Mahomes heard the play call through his headset and said, you know what? I'm going to continue to throw it. And that's what happens. That's what greatness is about. Putting your ego aside and understanding, hey, Tom Brady understands, hey, it's not my day today. I'm going to hand the ball off, and we're going to win this game. And I'm going to probably throw for 100 yards, 150, 200 yards. But we're going to win. And that's the thing when it comes to want, right? You can't just want something. You're going to have to go, and it's going to be difficult, right? Everything worth doing is difficult to some degree. And Tom Brady put the blueprint out there. Yeah, I'm obsessed with football. Yeah, there's a reason why I have 7 rings and the second quarterback to have the most amount of rings is Joe Montana, who played 30, 40 years, 20, 30 years ago, and only has 4 and is retired, so he can't continue to add that. Tom Brady's still playing. He can still add to his 7 rings. Aaron Rodgers is 39, 37. Even if he wins for the next 3 years, he's only going to have 4 Super Bowls. Russell Wilson, I think he's 35, 36, 34. He's not going to win. Unless he wins 5 rings in a row, he's still going to have only 6 Super Bowls. But that's the reason. That's why Tom Brady's great, because he's willing to do things that no other quarterback is willing to do. And yet we see these other guys pout and cry about, not having enough help. Well, it's not about who you have around you. It's what you get out of them. I guarantee you Tom Brady would swap with the roster that Russell Wilson has right now to what he had to deal with the year before. 12-4. First round exit it has to be admitted. But he did something. Russell Wilson thinks his offensive line is bad. Go play on the New England Patriots in 2019, 2020. Play with the wide receivers for the New England Patriots in 2019 and 2020. Win Super Bowls without DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett. Because I guarantee you Tom Brady would possibly win a Super Bowl with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Because that is a duo. We used to talk about Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Well, this is that on steroids. Right? This is borderline Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. That's what that is. And yet, all I hear about is complaints. Well, you can't have both ways. You can't be a major reason why you lose and yet want none of the blame. It doesn't work like that. Going back, kind of staying on topic, I know this is a little controversial. I would not select Trevor Lawrence with my number 1 overall pick if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know that's a little odd because I just went from, because I'm still staying on topic. And the reason why I wouldn't, and let me explain myself, is his desire. Publicly talked about, everybody who is close to him, who has been close to him, publicly admitted, yeah, football is not the end-all be-all for him. And if I'm a franchise team, that worries me. Because I don't know what to expect. And this is why I'm staying on topic, because we've seen what it takes to be great. Now, I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence has even the ability, or because it's never going to happen. There's no going to be another Tom Brady, right? Unfortunately, it's never going to happen in the NFL, where winning is literally the most hardest thing to do. It's never going to happen. There's a reason why the NFL is different from any other sport, and that's because the infrastructure is made to where every team, no matter how bad, is comparable. There is no second chance. There is no, Canada Football League going against the NFL. No. There is a salary cap, right? It's not the soccer league where some teams are, their net worth, they have a part-time job because they're on a D2 team and they just create it into a D1. It's not baseball where you have the Yankees going against Oakland A's. It's much more than that. It's the level of competition is so flat in the NFL. It's so competitive. It's literally, I believe, the most difficult sport to win. Now, I could be wrong, and let me rephrase that. Probably the most hardest team sport to win, because even the worst teams have a chance. You have to go to a 3-year college. You have to be in college for 3 years. You have to, be a for sure athlete, yet you have to pass your classes. You can't be on drugs. You are getting the best of the best in the NFL. Even from the lowest linebacker is better than any other linebacker for any other football league, right? Canada, that's an option. But when it comes to the NFL, everything is talented. Every position is talented. Every player is talented. You don't make it into the NFL if you're not talented. And if my quarterback, who has had it so easy for the past few years, and we have to talk about it. I don't necessarily have a problem with the not having a chip on your shoulder, right? Because he's been projected the Andrew Luck / John Elway of the NFL for since he was in high school, right? So you don't have to have a chip on your shoulder. You've been the number one quarterback of your peers since high school. There is no chip. You haven't been passed on. You haven't walked on a team. You don't need a chip. I get that. But the obsession, football's not it for me. That's the part where I have trouble with. Because we see players that don't take football serious. Right? And I'm not saying that you have to die on the field, but you can't have your teammates outworking you if you're the quarterback. There's always going to be life outside of football, but the amount of time you actually on the football field is limited. It just has to be addressed, right? I'm sure Big Ben thought he was going to retire probably a little bit after Tom Brady. I'm sure Drew Brees believed he was going to retire after Tom Brady, since Tom Brady was drafted before. But that's not the case. I'm sure Phillip Rivers believed he was going to retire after Tom Brady. Tom Brady was drafted before me. I should absolutely. There's no limit. I want to win. I'm sure Eli Manning believed he was going to retire after Tom Brady. But there's a reason why Tom Brady is still at the pinnacle. And I know that this is going to be like, he loves Tom Brady. Well, it's just fact. He's the GOAT. There's no debate. You want to be a star quarterback in this league? There's a standard. You want to be compared to Dak Prescott? Go ahead, play subpar. Don't be the idea. There's categories to this thing. If Trevor Lawrence was a second, third round pick, I wouldn't be comparing him to Tom Brady. But he's been hailed upon a Andrew Luck / John Elway. John Elway succeeded. Now, Andrew Luck fell short of what he was projected to be, right? And we saw him retire for his health. Now, that's all power to him, because health is the number one thing. I would never bash anybody for retiring because of your health. I can't. Right? It's the number one thing. Me personally, right? Football is not the end all be all. Tom Brady hasn't had significant injuries, hasn't been injured enough as much as an Andrew Luck was in his shorter career. Russell Wilson hasn't been injured as much as, and that's just every situation is different. But we saw him take the beating for the Indianapolis Colts and said, you know what? I can't do this. My health has to be first. The offensive line is horrible, because it was before they turned into a beast. If Andrew Luck had stayed 2 more years, I think he would have a way better, different career projection, because his offensive line has improved superiorly. But during his play, it was one of the worst offensive lines. We saw that. And we saw him say, you know what? I love football, but it's not worth my health. And I get that, and I respect that. But when you have a quarterback who says, oh, it's not the end of the door. The people closest to him say, oh yeah, if he were to walk away from football, he would have no regrets. What? Are you kidding me? Andrew Luck retired because he was forced to because of health. We've seen countless other players retire because of health. And we saw how painful it was. We've seen Phillip Rivers and how painful it is for him to never win a Super Bowl. We saw with Drew Brees only winning one Super Bowl and how painful it was. Right? And now New Orleans had bad luck the last couple of years, and I think they could have potentially won a Super Bowl had one of those calls gone their way. But we saw that. We saw the pain in their eyes. We've seen what it takes to be a Tom Brady. Right? Football is the end-all, be-all. And yes, that may make a lot of people around you upset. Right? I'm sure Giselle, and she's voiced this publicly, how she wants her husband to, be home with their kids, with her, and which wife wouldn't, right? But to Tom Brady, above everything is his obsession at being the greatest quarterback of all time. That's not, Aaron Rodgers. You see the difference. Tom Brady wins Super Bowl, already working on, his next season, already moving on to the next. Aaron Rodgers is trying to film for Jeopardy, and he has his days counted. I think he said he only works like exactly the amount of days that he does for the NFL. That's the difference, right? He drinks his 4 fingers of whiskey or tequila or whatever he drinks. That's the difference. And I'm sure Aaron Rodgers puts in a lot of effort into being a quarterback in the NFL. But when you compare it to the GOAT, it pales in comparison. Right? There's a reason why Russell Wilson isn't prepared some plays and makes miraculous plays, but also falls short. There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes lost that Super Bowl. It has to be an obsession. You have to be the hardest worker. If you're a teammate on the Jacksonville Jaguars and you look over, I'm sure Leonard Fournette, if he were to go back now to the Jacksonville Jaguars, would have a huge problem with Trevor Lawrence if he comes in nonchalantly. Oh, I'm not here. Oh, we win or we lose. I'm still here, right? Because he had that taste. Once you get that taste, it's very different. And we've seen every single Tampa Bay Buccaneer come out and say that. We saw it publicly where Tom Brady is arguing with his offensive line because they're missing assignments. They're making dumb penalties. That's dedication. It's not a diva move to say, hey, you can't take a penalty right here because we're literally so close to scoring a touchdown. We can't lose yardage. And then we see other players and they themselves are the ones causing the problem. It's been recorded. It's been documented. Tom Brady's the GOAT. And it has to be, he has laid out the blueprint. Yeah. It takes a lot of hours watching film. Yeah, it's a lot of meetings. Yeah, I was in New England for many years, basically 20 years. And guess what? We had the same head coach. And just so you know, he's not the most creative, a social coach. Yet he was so obsessed, he put up with all of it. And that's the problem that I have with Trevor Lawrence. I would not sign him unless I lower my expectations. If I want him to be the next Dak Prescott where he performs yards and comes back and eventually loses, but it's okay because we got him next year, or, a Baker Mayfield where, okay, if we have the team built around him 100%, we're got this, or an Aaron Rodgers where he can put up the stats, win an MVP, but when it comes to the NFC Championship, he falls short. or a Matt Ryan who has given up so many leads, or Russell Wilson who, since taking the keys to the car, has failed in the playoffs continuously, then yeah, I would take him number one overall. If I lower my expectation, I would take him number one. Because it takes a lot of effort getting up from the ground after having a 300-pound lineman, often defensive lineman, hit you square in the mouth. It takes a lot of effort waking up 4, 5, 6 in the morning and watching film for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. It takes a toll. And I would not take him with the number one overall if I am looking for the next Tom Brady. Moving on, we have Allen Robinson. If you guys didn't know, he got franchise tagged for the second year in a row. Still with the Chicago Bears. I don't know what their quarterback is going to be. Supposedly, according to Andy Dalton himself, he was promised his starting job, which is not good if you're a Chicago Bear fan. You still have Nick Foles, but is he the answer? I think unless you're Doug Peterson and the Philadelphia Eagles, I wouldn't want Nick Foles on my team. So, I don't know. I'm excited. Allen Robinson is a tremendous wide receiver. And unfortunately, he has not had a tremendous quarterback. I'm excited to see what he does this year. Hopefully, the Chicago Bears can trade up, possibly. Let me look up where they are in the draft order. They did pretty well last season, so they don't have a high pick. And they're picking number 20th. Went 8-8 last season. So that's interesting to say the least. You got 20th overall pick. Could you potentially trade still for Deshaun Watson, even though the storm and the cloud surrounding him? That would be interesting. Do you, I don't know, maybe trade up in the draft, maybe go number 8? You can probably go up to number 4. That's going to definitely cost you an arm and a leg. You can move up to 6, potentially 7 with the Detroit Lions, 8 to the Carolina Panthers, potentially. Because I believe somebody else will. I think if I'm the Atlanta Falcons, I select a quarterback. But once again, I'm not in the Atlanta Falcons organization. So I'm excited. I definitely, we're one day away. And I think tomorrow morning, tomorrow early afternoon, I will be giving my mock draft myself. If you guys are interested, tune in. But tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. And of course, we're going to come on here Friday and we're going to talk all about it. So thank you guys for listening. If you guys enjoyed it, share it, like it, whether you're listening on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify. Follow us on every social media page. And it's the same logo. I think there's another podcast that's called Beyond the Stats. I'm trying to see if we can outpace them. But same logo, black, green letters. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and comment down below if you guys love this microphone, and maybe I can make a little video about what equipment I use to make this podcast. And I personally think it sounds way better, at least into my ears right now. It sounds way better than my old microphone. So make sure you subscribe, like, share, listen, and like I said, I hope you guys have a wonderful remaining rest of your day.